Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wolfpacker Show. My name's Ethan McDowell, and I am here with Noah Fleischman, as I am every week. We're here for another basketball update, but we're also going to talk a lot of NC State football spring practice today because it kicked off yesterday. We were allowed to go and watch for about half an hour, so we're going to share our takeaways, what we saw on the field, what impressed us, what concerns us. We're going to get into it. It's officially overreaction season. From now until August, it's going to be focusing on every little tiny detail, every morsel of info and intel that we get. And that starts today on this show. So we're going to talk through all of it. Before we do so, just want to shout out that we're both writers for the Wolfpacker.com. That's NC State's site on the On3 network. Right now, On3, fastest growing college sports, football and basketball, and a little bit of everything sports website out there. It's the future of the industry, and right now you can get on and become a premium member for only $1 for your first month of premium access. So that's a great deal. Go check it out. The link, if you're watching on YouTube or on a podcast platform, the link to join the site is in our bio. So go check it out. And if you do, it's only $1 for your first month. I believe it's about as cheap as you can get for premium access to recruiting scoops, team news, team analysis, and everything in between. All right, and going off of that, we're going to break down some of a few of the tidbits that we gathered from our premium spring practice observation stories. Noah and I were both at practice. We watched both sides of the ball and wrote up little notebooks on the offense and the defense, just sharing what we saw on the field. So, first, Noah, your first spring practice here. I think it's always an exciting time of the year. It's you take 2 months off from football, and you watch the bowl games, the college football playoff. You see the Super Bowl, and then you're sitting there, and you're like, "Dang, no more football until August." Wrong. We have spring practice in about 2 weeks, so it's time to dive back into football talk. I'm excited about it. Noah, how are you feeling?
I'm excited. We're back in the swing of things with football for the next month, a little over a month. I don't know. I'm not very good at looking at a calendar. I just look at the next day. But a lot of time between now and the spring game in early April, which I think is going to be exciting. April, I think
April
yeah.
6th.
Yes. Thank you for correcting me. But I think it's great. We got to run around on the field yesterday. Saw the offense, saw the defense, saw the new faces. 32 new guys on the field. A lot of new numbers. I had to print a roster out before because I was like, oh, I don't know who some of these. Like, you look at a number and like, oh, number 20 running back, Kendrick Raphael. Nope,
That's the
wrong.
example I was going to bring up too.
Nope, that's Hollywood Smothers. Kendrick's in number 0 now. So, stuff like that. But it was good to see, a lot of new guys, see them up close, see how big some of these dudes are. Because, Cedric Bailey, he's all a 6'6".
Yep.
And things like that. I'm sure we're going to talk about it. But, there's some freshmen that look like they're juniors in college, just muscle-wise. And I think it's really cool to see. So, it's great to be on the practice field. Great to talk to, Dave Dorn and a couple of players afterwards. We're back in the swing of this, Ethan, for the next, a little over a month. And, we'll have weekly updates and things like that. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, and also you should mention after the practice we got to talk to head coach Dave Dorn. We got to talk to a few players. So we'll discuss that after we kind of share our observations here as well. But we got some direct intel straight from the sources yesterday. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to go through the positions. We're going to go through each position that we watched and just share one big takeaway. If you want the full takeaways, you can go subscribe to the Wolfpacker.com, but we're going to give you a little sneak peek into that. And Noah, let's start with the quarterbacks. So I spent a lot of the practice watching them. We only got to see really one practice period where they were throwing 2 receivers and none when throwing against the defense. So, we couldn't exactly take away a ton of huge sweeping declarations, but you touched on it earlier. Cedric Bailey, man, he's tall. He makes every other quarterback in the quarterback room look tiny because 6'6". It looks like he's put on a little bit of muscle since he arrived on campus, or at least since I saw him last at a 7-on-7 camp last year. So right now he looks like a small forward for the men's basketball team. Now he'll be in the system. He'll get a chance to grow, continue to put on more muscle, bulk up, and I think just from watching him in high school, watching him in the spring practice, I think he has potential to be special, man. I think he could be a really, really good quarterback at NC State. You watch him throw, and the ball just flies out of his hand. He has some absurd arm strength. So much so I wouldn't be surprised if they might have to tell him to take a little bit off of it at times because he zips the ball in there, man. Was really impressed with him. Notably, or maybe not so notably since it's the first day of spring practice, but he took the initial backup quarterback reps in the first walkthrough of the first spring practice. Obviously, a lot more practice to go until any backup quarterback competition is decided. But it does kind of show like there's already this base trust there that the staff has in CJ. And liked what I saw out of him. Grayson McCall, I mean, shoot, there's enough tape on him that I don't think folks need me to really describe how he throws the ball, but catchable ball, good arm strength, good accuracy. I think he's going to be a very solid quarterback. We're going to hop around here. We're going to go to offense and defense just so there's a bit of a rhythm here. But Noah, which position group would you like to enlighten us about today?
Yeah, I watched a lot of the defense yesterday. You watched a lot of the offensive guys. We'll start with the front. Defensive front. It's where a lot of games are won and lost. On the line of scrimmage. And NC State's D line back out there kind of looks a little bit new. Davin Van, we talked to him afterwards. He joked, no CJ Clark, no Savion Jackson. He's kind of the old guy in the room now, and he kind of joked about that a little bit. But he was out there being his usual self. He's a big guy. He makes a lot of people look small. But one guy he didn't make look small in the D line, Chase Bond. Freshman defensive end who's here early. He's a little bit smaller muscle-wise, but you put them standing next to each other, you can see, the possibility of what they can do with them and make him kind of look like Davin Van a little bit. So that was exciting to see.
Yeah.
You saw Brandon Cleveland and Chevali Price kind of round out that first team, D-line. We'll see how that shapes up. And, second team D-line is kind of the question of what they do there with DJ Jackson, taking some second team nose tackle reps. So D-line was interesting. Red Hibbler was not at practice, and then Noah Potter was limited. So a couple of the older guys in the D-line weren't fully taking part. But I don't think that's anything to worry about at this point in the year. Staff's going to be cautious with guys ahead, with surgeries or nagging injuries. They're not going to force them to go out there and go full speed day one at spring practice. I think they should be okay, moving forward. But D-line's an exciting group. New-looking group a little bit, but we'll see who steps up and can take some of these reps that CJ Clark and Savion Jackson had last year.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a thin group in the spring, but you're going to add 2 more true freshmen in the summer, and then this gives an opportunity for guys like Chase Bond or an Isaiah Shirley to step up. These young guys to really, really make a great impression. So it'll be fun to watch them play. It'll be fun to see if they could carve out a role in the 2 deep for next year, because there is playing time, as you discussed, at that position. Let's hop back over to offense, and I want to talk about the running backs. This is probably the group I watched the least, just because it was very, very light to no contact at practice, so there wasn't a ton you could take away from the running backs, except for Jordan Waters. I would not want to have to tackle. That is a big dude. He is going to bring a powerful element to the Wolfpack backfield that I think could change up the offense and make it a lot more dynamic than it was last year. Just because, he's going to be able to come in and pick up 4 yards when you need to. But if he can break a couple of tackles, he can get the second level. He can break that for a touchdown, as NC State fans know far too well from last year's contest against Duke. And now that he is on the other triangle team, it's worth getting pretty excited about, I think. He's obviously, this is his 6th season of college football. He's been through spring practice. He's been through the whole routine. I'm really just looking to see maybe if he can, step up as like a true leader of the group. Because other than them, like DeMarcus Jones is in there as a redshirt senior, who I'm sure will be a valued veteran presence in the room. And then other than that, you have redshirt freshman Hollywood Smothers. You have sophomore Kendrick Raphael, who also looked good, Looks like, physically, a year in college football, he's bulked up. So that's to be expected. And, of course, he showed flashes as a true freshman. It will be cool to see where he fits into the rotation as well. But, you have him, you have true freshman Duke Scott, true freshman Isaiah Jones. It's a young room. And the other note, Jordan Poole, he's a running back now. He made the move from linebacker last year, and he's going to stick with the running backs based on everything we've heard. So, yeah, that's my summation of the running back room. I think it's going to be better than last year. Obviously, they're replacing a ton of guys with, Delbert Mims, Jordan Houston, Michael Allen. But I think they have a chance to take a significant step forward. I think it's one of the early contenders for most improved position groups this year. Noah, what position group would you like to dive into next?
Okay, so just keep going backwards on the defense. We'll go to the linebackers. Interesting spot. Some new faces, some returning faces, a kind of new face. We'll talk about it. But Peyton Wilson's gone. Obviously, the all do everything linebacker from last year. He's off to the NFL. He'll be a second round pick probably in April's draft. So that'll be fun to watch. He's at the combine this week. We can touch on that at the end. But they replace him with a safety. Sean Brown moving down from safety to linebacker. He played that spot during the Clemson game when Peyton got hurt. Played pretty well, 5 tackles on 1 drive, and filled that spot really, really well. So he's now in linebacker. They put some muscle on him to kind of, bulk him up just a little bit more for that spot at linebacker. And we talked to him after. He's excited. He thought that this was probably the best move for him. The coaches thought it. His family thought it kind of, was just a decision that worked out for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really exciting to see. And he's been talking with Peyton. He's been studying Peyton's film of, how to play will linebacker. And that's what I think this spring is for, is to kind of get him comfortable of playing that every single down. And what's good about him is Peyton was one of the best coverage linebackers in the country, if not the best. Well, you take a guy who is used to covering and downfield, put him at linebacker, I think, he's going to be a really, really big asset on that part of the field for NC State, covering the running backs out of the backfield, maybe, lining up in the slot with the tight end or something. So I think it's not a bad move. I think it's a great move for Sean Brown, and I think it'll work out pretty well. Outside of that, Caden Fordham back in a starting role, most likely for NC State. Interesting spot that NC State was running. Redshirt freshman Kamal Bonner was with the first team yesterday, which is an interesting thing. You were pretty high on him last year, coming in as a true freshman. He's got an opportunity, I think, to turn some heads, in camp and kind of earn a starting spot in the fall. So linebacker is a spot I don't think NC State will see too much of a drop-off. I don't think anybody's going to do what Peyton Wilson did last year. I don't think, we're going to see 138 tackles, 17 and a half tackles for a loss. But if the group can come together and make production similar to that, I think they'll be okay. So I don't think this is a position that NC State should be too worried about. Obviously, replacing NFL draft picks pretty hard, but I think that Sean Brown might be up to the task. I don't think the expectation should be Peyton Wilson out of Sean Brown, but I think good linebacker is not off the table.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be sort of like everyone has to step up to mitigate the loss of Peyton Wilson. It's not going to be Sean Brown coming in and completely filling that void. But, everyone saw last year, he's not afraid to get physical. He was fantastic. He was maybe one of the best run support safeties in the country last year. So very confident he'll be able to fill that role. And the only place he really struggled in at points last season was pass coverage, and his job will be a little bit easier there at linebacker compared to safety. So I think it's a good move. He said he's added about 10 pounds since last season. So he's bulking up a little bit. But physicality has never been his issue. I don't know if they really need him to add a ton of weight and sacrifice the speed he has. So like he only missed 4 total tackles, I believe, last year. So and I think you can feel comfortable about him coming up into the box where he played the majority of his snaps already and making plays. So excited about that. Excited to see everyone step up around him. And then we should also mention they got another transfer portal commitment this week from Auburn linebacker Cam Riley, who is like 6'5", 240 plus pounds, much more of like the Peyton Wilson mold of linebacker in terms of size. So he'll be here in the summer, and he'll enter that competition. He had 120 career tackles at Auburn, sort of a rotation guy for them. So linebacker room, it's going to be one we're talking a lot about until the start of the season and probably throughout the season. So keep an eye on that group, and a lot to be excited about there for sure. Moving to the wide receivers, I'd say another very intriguing group this season. The guy who stood out to me, I know you're looking to hear stuff about KC, Noah Rogers, the other incoming guys, Terrell Anderson, Wesley Grimes, all of those big time additions over the offseason. But Noah, Bakari Collins yesterday really impressed me. I thought he looked great in the limited action that we got to see. He was taking those early first team reps, and if he could take a leap forward, and then all of the talented pieces all meshed together, all the newcomers, then man, if he let me phrase it this way, Noah, if he's starting next year or this year, this wide receiver unit is going to be pretty freaking good. Because if he can elevate to the level of Wesley Grimes, who had 400 plus yards and a few touchdowns at Wake Forest last year, elevate to the level of Noah Rogers, who's former 5-star recruit and all of this. If he's like at their level too, and like everyone's just kind of competing and pushing each other up to the top here, I think it's worth getting extremely excited about this group. I'll say just when they ran out onto the field, just a physically impressive group. Like most of them at this point, it's over 6 foot, over 6'1". A lot of 6'2", 6'3" receivers in the room now, and it looks like they've been buying into Coach Thunder's winter workout plan as well. So we'll see how that translates to the field. But it looks like Grayson McCall is going to have quite a few targets to throw to this season that can make a lot of plays. And looking at the inside group, it was a pretty thin group working at inside receiver. I mean, it was at slot receiver, it was really just KC and Jalen Coit. And then, the guys working at flex Y/tight end, it was, Juice Vereen, Justin Jolie, Dante Daniels, and Reed Mitchell were the notable names there. So, it's a smaller group. And then you have to remember, of course, they're going to add in like Jonathan Taylor in the summer as well, who's a freshman who could contribute from day one. So small group, but then you have to look at it and you're like, hey, I think it's pretty cut and dry. Who's the starting tight end is going to be? It's going to be Justin Jolie. Starting slot receiver, yeah, you're going to start the returning freshman All-American. So it makes sense why that group's a little smaller, and you have, a guy like Julian Gray working with the outside receivers instead of the inside receivers. So another fun group to watch. KC, I mean, there's not much we could take away. He was, half mad, half joking because he kept cleating himself in practice. So he's getting his feet back under him, getting ready for practice now. But he's going to have a big year, and if those outside guys can step up too, it's going to be a very fun passing offense to watch. I rambled there for a little bit on the wide receivers and tight ends, Noah. So if you want to go ahead and pick up with your next position, moving on to the secondary, I guess.
Yeah, I just had one more touch about the wide receiver. Talk about Bakari Collins. A little preview. We got a story going up today about guys that can improve their stock in spring practice, and I picked him as kind of the number one guy. Because if he can pick it up where he left off at the end of the season, playing 40 snaps a game, getting a role in the wide receiver room, I think that's going to be really impressive. Especially with what they brought into that outside receiver room. So just touching on that, he looked good. He looked confident. We talked to him afterwards too, and he was pretty confident about this new season, another year in Robert and I's offense. He's comfortable now, and he's excited. So I think that's something good to watch. Moving on to the secondary, corner and safety, NC State knows what it has, I think, in each spot. Aiden White at corner, that's the easiest, I think, position. Dave Doran talked about it. He goes, that guy's got the side of the field taken care of. No need to worry. He hasn't allowed a touchdown in 2 years. So don't know how many to look and see how many corners in the country are coming into this next year with that. Don't think it's a very long list.
No.
So that's that. There's a competition for the other side with Cheyenne Battle gone. We did see Brandon Cisse working with the first team at practice. Don't be surprised if Corey Coley also gets reps there. I think those two are the top two guys kind of competing for that spot. We thought Devon Marshall would be, but he's moved to nickel. He's still a corner on the website. On the roster we were given yesterday, he's at nickel, and I think that's probably a good spot for him. I think appears to be the favorite there, going into the season at nickel. Tamarcus Cooley also will get some time there probably too. So those two positions, I think NC State likes what it has. It's got depth at corner too. You can look at a guy like Corey Coley, who we mentioned, Javon Bali, Jackson Vick. I think there's a lot of guys that can play at corner, especially in the younger end. So it'll be kind of interesting, especially now when you bring Aiden White back for one more year, bring in Corey Coley, who he's got 1 year left. I think this season's really big on building depth in that room. So next year, those guys are ready to step up. They'll probably bring in a portal guy anyway, but still an opportunity for these young guys to make something happen.
Definitely. Before Aiden White decided to withdraw from the transfer portal, I mean, you were kind of having to bank on two guys taking leaps in the spring, right? You needed Brandon CC to be ready, and then you needed a Corey Coley or Devon Marshall to be ready to, assume those large roles. But now it's like you have the peace of mind of one side of the field is good. You have a reliable, consistent all ACC corner over there. And just have, banking on one of those guys, a Brandon Cisse taking a sophomore leap, a Corey Coley being able to provide a consistent veteran presence. Shoot, I think you go into spring practice a lot more confident than you would have if Aiden had ended up heading elsewhere. But yeah, that's definitely a group I'm pretty confident in, man.
No reason not to be, right?
Yeah. So I guess now I'll move on to the offensive line here, because I touched on the tight ends. I mean, Justin Jolie was going through with the first team. Juice Farine was taking a lot of those flex Y reps as well. Jolie was lining up a little bit of inline, a little bit in the slot, which, he's going to be everywhere this year. So get ready for that. He's going to line up all over the field. Same with Juice, who, again, looks like he's added muscle, looks ready to potentially make a sophomore leap after, he flashed in the Notre Dame game last year. Dante Daniels was taking mostly third-string reps, and Reed Mitchell, who played a lot as a walk-on last year, was with the second team. But okay, moving on to the offensive line. There were two starters or potential starters not at practice. Zeke Correll, who, I think he was in like one of the NIL collectives, more recent social media posts wearing a sling. He was not there. And then Anthony Carter Jr. was not there as well. So that gives opportunities to other folks. And for this first spring practice, for the first reps of the walkthrough, redshirt freshman Kamen Smith was taking reps at left guard. From everything I've heard, I wouldn't be shocked if he came in and started at left guard as a redshirt freshman this year. I think he's at least going to be in a rotational role, because everything I've heard is he has transformed his body. He is ready to come in and make an impact as a second-year player after being, a really impressive prospect out of high school, really athletic lineman. And he's listed on the roster as a tackle even. I think he'd have the versatility to slide outside if they needed him to. He's 6'5", over 300 pounds. So I think he has the capability to do that as well. And then it was Sean Hill taking reps at center, veteran presence. He's been here for a long time. So he was just in there providing that reliable presence at center. Those are the main takeaways from the offensive line. Again, we didn't get to see them really block anybody, so we can't really take away anything huge. But other than that, it was the same offensive line from last year that you expected, with the other three starters, the Anthony Belton at left tackle. Then you have Tim McKay at right guard, and then of course Jacarius Peak at right tackle. All right. So I think Noah, did you want to talk about safeties and kind of touch on what that group is looking like right now?
Yeah, safety, I mean, is an interesting spot. Bishop Fitzgerald's back. He was running first team safety as expected. He had a really great year first year at NC State coming from the junior college level this past season. They moved Renta Hinton to safety as well. And then Zach Myers and Damon Fagan were running the second team safety unit. So it's kind of an interesting thing to watch. They're just with two young guys in the second team safety. I know they're high on both of them. I think that this is an opportunity for them to show what they can do as the second teamers. But yeah, Bishop, Fitzgerald, Rente Hinton, first team guys to open up practice.
Awesome. All right. Well, I believe that is the specialist preview. Because you mentioned Marshall was working at nickel, Tamarcus Cooley was working at nickel, freshman Assad Brown as well. So that's it. We didn't get to watch the specialists much. But Coach Doran, and I guess we can use this as a way to kind of go into the press conferences. But Coach Doran did say they feel good about Kanoa at kicker. They also have Colin Smith there, who pushed Braden Narveson in the kicker competition last year. So they'll have that, and then they also have to sort out and find a new long snapper. So there's at least like one intriguing position battle at every single position group this year, which is very exciting. It's going to make for a really fun and highly fun to follow spring practice for the Wolfpack. All right. Actually, before we dive into press conferences, and we're going to touch on basketball a little bit, but before we do any of that, I just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsor, Game Time. Game Time is a ticket buying and selling marketplace. Whether you're looking for tickets to the Duke and NC State game next week, whether you look the men's basketball game, whether you're looking to go to the women's basketball game against Syracuse tomorrow, or a concert, a comedy show, a Hurricanes game, whatever you're looking for, Game Time has it. And, you can buy tickets, right at the last minute, an hour leading up to, puck drop or tip off or, the first song of the concert. It's all there, easy to use app. You can find it on any app store, or you can go and use it in your browser at gametime.co. That's not .com, that's .co. And my favorite thing about the app, if you've listened to the show, you already know this well. When you go and you look, you can see the exact view from your seat of the ticket you'd be buying. I'll hold it up for those watching on our YouTube channel. You can see, these are tickets to the next NC State home game. You can see where you would be sitting, the view from that seat, and has the price, the details of the seat, and it has it listed, cheapest to most expensive. So if you're looking for a good deal, it's a good place to go. And to sweeten that deal, if you use code Wolfpack, and that's all caps Wolfpack, for your first purchase, you'll get $20 off. So it's a good deal. Go check it out in Game Time app on any app store or on your web browser at gametime.co. All right, Noah. So after practice, we both went to the indoor practice facility. We sat there. We wrote up the observations that we just talked about. And then we talked to Coach Doran. We talked to Sean Brown, talked to Dakari Collins, Grayson McCall, and Corey Coley, and Davin Van. It was a busy day. So we talked to a lot of folks and got a lot of input from them. Noah, just what were some of the big takeaways you took from our first spring practice press conferences of the year?
Everyone's excited. Why not, right? Be excited. I think that, it's important to have that. I mean, everyone's going to be. Nobody's won or lost a game yet. They won't for another, 7 months. So it'll be exciting, or 6 months. So it'll be exciting. Dave Doran, though, did talk about some different things. He talked about, staff continuity and how that's been important, which we'll have a story up on that today, and kind of, breaking down, what he talked about, how that's important to have the third longest tenured staff in the ACC, and also some information on some raises that the assistants got. But outside of that, I think it was, he's excited about what they have. He's excited about 32 new guys, and that's important. I think spring practice is really getting them, on the routine, on how NC State does everything, breaking their habits from whether it was from high school or their previous college. And I think he was really, looked at that as a challenge, but a fun one. And NC State is trying to find ways to connect on and off the field. And they're doing probably a good job, depending on how guys were talking about it afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the off the field part. It seemed like all the players we talked to kind of talked about, meshing off the field, because, they have these spring practices for a reason, to mesh on the field, but they're putting in the work to, get closer off the field. When we talked to Grayson earlier in the year, he really emphasized that's something he cares deeply about. Is he thinks a successful football program, you have to have a deeper connection, a deeper understanding of each other than just what you're doing on the field. So confident that he's going to step in, as a leader and take on that role and help this team mesh together. And that's a main thing to watch for. It's not something you can like tangibly measure, but if the team's putting in the work to grow together as a unit, it's going to be reflected on the field as soon as we see them against Western Carolina. So that was really my big takeaway. Other than Davin Van has clearly been embracing the winter conditioning regimen. He looks huge. He actually said he had lost weight from last year, but he looks ready to continue to wreck games. He said he came back because the draft grade just wasn't that high. It wasn't what he was looking for. So he's going to come back. He's going to continue to blow up defenses on that 3-man front, or blow up offenses, I should say, and raise that draft grade and have a great senior year with the Wolfpack. All right, I think unless you have anything else, Noah, as far as football takeaways go, I think we can switch gears to basketball, which is definitely the less cheerful part of this podcast. Noah, last night you covered NC State's loss to Florida State, a 90-83 shootout in Tallahassee. And then Saturday I covered NC State's win over Boston College. So a 1-1 week for the Pack men's squad. Noah, I mean, at this point, the push for the NCAA tournament is likely finished unless they can win the ACC tournament, correct?
Yeah, likely that's shot. I mean, of course, people can have optimism. They can win the last 3 games and maybe feel bubbly going into Selection Sunday. But yeah, the way they can lock themselves in now is, it's always the case to win the ACC tournament, but that's the easiest way, the most likely way NC State can get into the tournament at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything you'd like to see out of them? Any improvements you'd like to see them make? Anything you'd like to see them stress, just so maybe it doesn't have impact on this season, but it makes you feel a little bit better about just the program moving forward?
Yeah, they've hung their hat on defense the whole entire year, and when things weren't going well offensively, the defense found ways to win games for them. Well, their last 2 losses, the defense has not been there. Syracuse scored 55 on them in the first half, put them in a big hole, 15-point deficit at halftime. They clawed their way back, had a chance to win that game in the second half. If they don't give up 55, they've got a chance to win. Fast forward to last night at Florida State. Florida State scored 90 points. NC State scored 83. The offense was not the problem. Sometimes shots don't fall, and that it happens, college basketball. But 83 points should be enough to win the game. Kevin Keats talks about it afterwards. And the common thread between these 2 games is that Keats has described is that they're not following the scouting report on defense.
Okay.
Against Syracuse, one player had 8 threes in the first half. Against Florida State, that didn't happen. But Florida State was able to do whatever they want. They got inside the paint. They got, I think they made 14, 15 layups. And, that when he was describing after the game, drives through the middle were part of the scouting report. And Florida State made it look easy being able to get to the rim and get easy baskets. So I think that's the biggest concern that these last 3 games, have a lot hinging on and of kind of trying to show improvement and growth. But when you look at who they're playing, Ethan, it's 3 quad 1 games in a row, 2 of them on the road, and then 1 home game is against Duke. So it's not getting easier at all. This was probably their, if you want to put it in air quotes, their easiest game left on the schedule, and they lost 90-83. So to Chapel Hill they go this weekend. That one will be interesting. 4:00 on Saturday afternoon, and then quick turn Monday night against Duke before they go to Pitt to close things out. So we'll see what happens. But 2 games against triangle teams in a row. NC State could build some momentum going to the ACC tournament if they can win one of them. I think that would be a positive going to the ACC tournament. They still have some seeding to play for. They're definitely capable to, get that single bye, start playing on Wednesday. You play on Tuesday, the winning the ACC tournament might go out the window too, having to win, that many days in a row. So I think right now the biggest thing is to win some games, keep yourself above that 10 seed line so they can avoid having to play Tuesday in DC.
Yeah, absolutely. And switching gears to the women's side of things, it was an 0-2 week for the Wolfpack women. The first time they've lost consecutive games this year. It ended their chances at a regular season title push. It complicated their pursuit of a number 1 seed, and it rose some questions. First, they lost 80-70 against UNC, and no one involved was happy with the defensive effort there. UNC, shot well from the field, but the Pack felt that they didn't, follow the scouting report enough. They knew what, Lexi Donarski, a sharpshooter for the Tar Heels, had 23. They felt like they didn't defend her as well as they needed to, and they gave up at least 19 points in every single quarter. So that's not what the Wolfpack has done this year. They're one of the best defenses in the conference, so they need to get back to that. And then they were on the road for a second consecutive game against Duke, so second consecutive in-state rivalry game. And you play against Duke, and it's going to be a scrappy game. They're not going to make anything easy. So now you have to look at it where it's you have to defend them. You have to match their intensity, and it didn't seem like the Pack did that. Duke put up 22 in the second quarter, and that's when they kind of built their commanding lead that the Pack really couldn't close in on, despite a late comeback push. So when you play scrappy defensive teams like Duke, you have to be ready to replicate that same defensive production. I know the offense wasn't pretty, but that's not abnormal for Duke. They make everything ugly. So we'll see. I mean, now you have tomorrow a matchup against a surging ranked Syracuse team that's been really good all year, and then you finish it off with Senior Day against Wake Forest. But they're going to be the second or third seed in the conference tournament, most likely. If they can beat Syracuse and Wake Forest, they would be locked in as the second seed. They control their own destiny there. But it's a log jam. There's a lot of teams sitting at 5 ACC losses right now. So if they lose another, you could drop down all the way to I think like 4 or 5 even. They have some favorable tiebreakers. So their status as a top 4 is not locked in, but it's fairly secure. So easiest way to take care of that is win against Syracuse, and then I believe they would be locked in completely to a top 4 spot. So, obviously, not a fun couple of games to watch, but the sky is still not falling. We'll see how things go against Syracuse Thursday night. Noah will be there with full coverage. All right, well, that's almost the entire show. Before we wrap up here, Noah, any last shout outs, anything you'd like to mention before we head out here?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all today, and it's a busy week though. Shout out to NC State Athletics. It's a busy week that we've got up ahead. Men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball in action. Shout out to them. They've won, I think, 11, 12 in a row.
Right?
12-3 start. Best start in program history for a first-year coach. So I think shout out to Lindsay Leftwich.
Definitely.
She's turned that program around, at least for now. We'll see what happens when we get to ACC play. They haven't had a winning record in a full ACC slate in like 5 or 6 years. So we'll see if they can at least get to 500. I think that would be a big improvement in year 1 for her in league play.
An impressive turnaround for sure. I don't know if we've recorded a podcast since it happened, but NC State Gymnastics clinched the regular season ACC title. So shout out to them as well, and finished it undefeated, because then they went on and defeated Pittsburgh as well. And then shout out to Peyton Wilson and Dylan McMahon. They're both at the combine. Peyton Wilson and Joe Shimko in the specialist showcase as well. So 3 members of the Pack, meeting with teams, showing off their skills. Peyton will go through combine testing tomorrow, and then that's Thursday for those watching, not on the release date. And then Dylan McMahon hits the field Sunday, I believe. So you can watch that on the NFL Network if you want to see the former Wolfpack stars run the 40, do the vertical, all of that sort of stuff. All right. Well, Noah, I think that's the show. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Like we said at the top of the show here, it's spring practice is back. We're excited. We're excited to be covering another year of Wolfpack football. Check out the wolfpacker.com. We have plenty of content going up about that. It's also a busy time for recruiting, so we'll have plenty of scoops there. all types of info, and we appreciate you following along with us with all of it. And yeah, we'll be back next week with another update. See you then.